Good morning, students. In this video, we are going to discuss Hagar, a story of a woman and water. First of all, we can see about the author. Sarah Joseph is an Indian novelist and a short story writer, a professor of Malayalam, a social worker, and to an extent, a political activist. She won the Kendra Sahitya Academy Award for her novel Alahayude Penmakkal. She also received the Valar Award for the same novel. Sarah Joseph has been at the forefront of the feminist movement in Kerala and is the founder of Manushi. She and Madhavikutty are considered among the leading women writers in Malayalam. In 2015, she returned the Kendra Sahitya Academy Award to protest ideological suppression and violence against writers and thinkers. Let's see an introduction about the chapter. Hagar, a story of woman and water, is an extract taken from Sarah Joseph's novel Gift in Green, the English translation of her novel Adi. The story that we are going to discuss today is the second chapter of the book. The novel goes through the pains of the people who are being evacuated from their own land and wanted to save the land from a consumerist society. Let's see the biblical story of Hagar and her son. The storyteller narrates the story of Hagar and her son Ismail. Hagar was the Egyptian slave of Sarah, Abraham's wife. Abraham's wife Sarah had been barren for a long time, so she offered Hagar to Abraham as a second wife. Hagar became pregnant, and there arose a conflict between the two women. Sarah complained to Abraham and treated Hagar harshly, and Hagar ran away. After some days, the pregnant Hagar came back and gave birth to a child, Ishmael. Later, Sarah becomes pregnant and gives birth to a child, Isaac. The conflict between the women returned. One day, Abraham brought Hagar and Ishmael out together. Abraham gives Hagar bread and water, then sends them into the wilderness of Beersheba. The storyteller narrates the story of Hagar and her son Ishmael and their survival in the hostile desert where her husband Abraham had abandoned them. The major theme of the story is water as the giver and preserver of life. This is about the mental agony and pressures of Hagar in the desert. Let's see the summary of the story. Abraham, the Jewish patriarch, was promised by God that he would raise nations from Abraham. But his wife Sarah was barren. Sarah offered her maid Hagar as the second wife of Abraham, and Ishmael was born to them. When Sarah becomes pregnant and bore a son, Abraham decided to abandon Hagar and her son on the desert. He provided them some food and a bottle of water to drink for the journey. When they reached the desert, Abraham left them there and walked away. Abraham and Sarah seemed indifferent to the fate of a mother and her child. She screamed aloud, but he never looked back. She lost the road and wandered over the desert, not knowing where she was. The water in the bottle was used up, and her poor child in the hot sun and in the burning sand had nothing to drink. Hagar squeezed out the last remaining drops from the water skin and moistened the parched lips of the baby. She feared her son would die of terrible thirst, and she laid him down under a little bush. She got up and began to wander about, struggling against the creeping hopelessness that tormented her. She crawled up and down the dunes with strong belief in God. Her breast went dry so far, and her child's pathetic state tormented her like anything. Her son began to scream and howl. That scary wilderness never seemed peaceful as hunger and thirst started hunting down her. As in a dream, she heard a voice calling like Hagar. It was the voice of a mysterious bird, comes from nowhere. She saw the bird was swiping its wings on the ground, and it created a water spring on the wild desert. The very first drop of water was the life giver of her son and herself. Hagar humbles herself before the kindness of God Almighty because she believed it was God Almighty who had came to them in the form of a mysterious bird to save them. She knew the value of water and decided to be the protector and keeper of the water spring, which was later transformed into a lake. Since there was no water, the residents in the desert led a nomadic life. Hearing about the water source, Nomads and desert tribes ask her permission to drink water from it. Hagar agrees and put forth a covenant that not a single drop of water is to be wasted, as she knows the true meaning of that precious drop of water. The nomads agreed and a water covenant took its birth. The nomads began to settle down on the banks of the lake. They bring food for Hagar and her son. Instead, she provides them with water for cultivation. Then they work to cultivate and harvest vegetables. Harvest paved way for festivals, and in due course, a community and a civilization came into being. This is the summary of the chapter. Let's see the conclusion of the chapter. Water serves as the center metaphor in Sarah Joseph's novel Gift in Green. Water is the symbol of fertility, sustainability, and vitality. Through the biblical reference of the story of Hagar, water is presented as the source of life. Sarah Joseph highlights the concept that nature never betrays. The narrator concludes the story by stating that the land has never extended empty hands to those who came to her. This is all about Hagar, a story of a woman and water. Thank you.